President Tony, members and guests. Before we get underway today, we've got some housekeeping to attend to on behalf of the Vocational Committee. Last week, those members who attended the tour of the Archives of New Zealand facility, would you please stand? We got to take up a small donation to pay for the security that made sure that we didn't leave a mess like this behind us. So would all of you please put $5 in the Sunshine Fund before you sit down? Thank you. The rest of you missed an extremely interesting and informative visit. I understand that coming up, the Vocational Committee have a visit to the Lichgate Funeral Home on the 21st of November, so you can find out what happens behind the scenes. A visit that I can imagine all of you will be dying to undertake. In the meantime, those of you who didn't participate last week, you should also now pay a fine to the Sunshine Fund. Can anyone, and I'm sure you can because I've heard some comments about it on the way in, tell me a significant event that happened on this day, the 11th of November, some time ago, which was of great significance to our country and the Western world? Well done, you don't have to pay. The armistice itself was actually signed on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month between Germany and the Allies to conclude World War I. Those of you who didn't know the answer to that should now pay. Back here in New Zealand, there had been several false news reports that the war had ended in the days leading up to the 11th of November 1918. But when it was finally confirmed and it was official, there was great consternation about celebrating the event because our country was in the grip of a major influenza pandemic. The medical authorities in each centre around the country are quite divided on whether their citizens should participate in any public parade to celebrate the armistice for fear of spreading the pandemic. Most businesses and government departments were closed, including the telephone exchange, which came under great criticism for that. Various centres in Christchurch, for example, the District Officer of Health said no children are allowed to get together in case we spread the flu. Auckland followed suit, so did Palmerston North. However, neighbouring Fielding decided to go ahead with their street parade, much to the consternation of their neighbours in Palmerston. In Featherston, it was a slightly different story because most of you may recall there was a military camp in Featherston and they had a number of soldiers who had recently died of influenza whose funerals are going to be held that day, so their parade was cancelled. In fact, I believe there were about 150 returned servicemen who came home quite happily from World War I only to die of the flu in the Featherston camp. Fielding, though, was different. They decided to have a parade. And this depicts their Armistice Day parade. I'm not sure it's the exact photo, but it's close enough. Going against the tide of popular opinion. So anybody here who was born in Fielding or raised there as a child, put your hand up and you can pay a fine. That explains a lot. As an aside, I don't think Heather Very is here today, is she? No. I'd like to thank Heather and her team. She's the CEO of Manfield Raceway. They organised a fantastic 40th year celebration dinner over the weekend for petrol heads to get nostalgic and participate in. It was a great event, so thank you to one of our members. While these armistice events of 1918 predate all of us, and certainly happened before this Rotary Club, which is the oldest one in New Zealand, was founded in 1921, you may now well wonder where I'm going with all of this. I was intrigued by the fact that the armistice was actually signed at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month. So I thought I'd investigate the implications of number 11 as it relates to some of the vocations represented by those of you here in our club today. According to Reader's Digest poll, the 11th spot for the most trusted occupation in New Zealand over the last 3 years was in 2011. The police. Anybody who was associated or worked with the police. Anyone like to stand? Thank you, Stephen. You can remain standing. You'll be joined by others later. In 2012, the 11th most trusted occupation in New Zealand was that of teaching. So those who are involved in education, please stand. And then we come to 2013. The most trusted occupation in 2013 was that of a scientist, which is quite typical, or topical shall I say, given the tremendous job that our club has done in developing the annual Eureka event, which raised the public awareness of scientists. So will all the scientists please stand? Oh, and left. All right. Well, those of you who have been standing, it's your turn now to make a contribution as you've already sat down. Moving on to sort of more business-related statistics. According to Statistics New Zealand, McDonald's is the 11th largest company in New Zealand in terms of employee numbers. Anyone who has worked for McDonald's, maybe in your student days, or better still, has eaten some of their product this year, would you please pay? And then if we turn to the US and you are a university graduate, I'm told that the 11th best paying job in the US for a recent university graduate is that of teaching. But as we've already found our educators, I've then moved on to see what was the next 11th best job that you could get in terms of income if you didn't have a college education. It happens to be fashion design. So if anybody here has been in the fashion industry, worked in it, or worked in related retail, you should now pay up. Recently, Grant Thornton, the accounting firm, who do a very good job here in Wellington, I'm not part of it, they determined in a survey that New Zealand was the 11th best country in the world for supporting growing businesses. So would all accountants and those who work in the financial services professions please stand, and I'll stay standing while I get the last vocation that we're going to pick on today. In 2013, apparently the 11th best paying job in New Zealand was an insurance risk manager, maybe a reflection of a recent spate of natural disasters. So all of those of you who work in the insurance industry, please stand and join your colleagues from the accounting and financial services profession. You can all sit down now, but as you do so, would you please put your hands in your pockets and make yet another contribution to the fund. And finally, to everybody else who missed out on being number 11 today and haven't paid at least twice during the session, it's now your opportunity to contribute your remaining loose change. You'll all be aware that the club is about to implement an alternative process for collecting fines. And so you need to take what could now actually be your last opportunity to get rid of those coins. Thank you.